Before we begin the movie, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and follow our Facebook page to support us in publishing more videos. The story begins with an ambitious young woman named Samira, who has just completed her university education in Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia. She bids farewell to her family members one by one before traveling to a remote village to begin her professional life as a teacher. When Samira arrives in the village, she meets the local children, who seem to be fed up with their previous teachers. However, after a while, she realizes the issue isn't the children themselves. She discovers that the nearby city is under a terrifying military attack. Samira tries to contact her family to make sure they're safe, but no one answers, so she resorts to sending them written letters. During this time, she also notices that some villagers are avoiding her. The next morning, Samira wakes up to the sound of screaming. When she looks out the window, she sees armed soldiers have taken over the area, and the villagers appear distressed, speaking to themselves. Samira quickly tries to hide her important belongings, but suddenly, an armed soldier enters her home. She attempts to be polite and offers him a drink, but he shows no interest and orders her to gather her things and go with the rest of the villagers. Samira joins the others in an empty church. Soon, the soldiers' leader arrives and orders the men to separate from the women. Despite the mothers' desperate attempts to hold on to their children, they eventually surrender to the commander's orders. The most shocking moment comes when the men are taken to the street and shot dead on the spot. As for Samira and the remaining women, they are loaded onto buses and transported to distant areas. On the way, Samira sees the soldiers burning down the village homes, as if to erase any evidence of what they've done. When they arrive at a large open area, they are forced to sleep on the ground to rest after the horrors they've experienced. The next morning, the soldiers wake and move around as if nothing happened. Everyone is forced to obey, as the soldiers seem unstable and capable of killing anyone who resists. Despite the scarcity of food, Samira, with her kind heart, shares part of her meal with any hungry child. When she notices that one of the women is in a terrible and unconscious state, she asks if anyone with medical experience can help. But a nurse tells her to leave the woman alone, saying it's better for her not to be aware of the horrors they're all living through. Over time, the women start to adjust to the harsh conditions in the camp, with little to do except watch over the children. At night, new trucks arrive carrying more soldiers, who immediately begin searching the female prisoners. The next day, Samira notices soldiers selecting some girls and taking them to a nearby house. Alarmed by what she sees, she tries to avoid the soldiers and stays close to the nurse, who tells her that food supplies are running out, which might mean they won't stay in this place forever. 2 days later, the soldiers return to the camp, and one of them calls out Samira's name. Despite pretending not to hear, she is forced to go with him to the house. There, she finds herself in front of 3 unconscious men who demand that she remove her clothes without taking a shower. When she hesitates, one of them rips her clothes off, and each begins to violently assault her. In the midst of this horror, Samira tries to mentally escape by focusing on an insect standing on the wall. But the soldiers are not done. They go on to torture her so brutally that she feels, at one point, detached from her body, as if her soul is watching her own suffering and reaching out to help. She's jolted back to reality by a harsh blow from one of the soldiers. Later, she wakes up in a different place, surrounded by women and girls who had suffered the same fate. The older women are forced to do domestic chores, while the young ones are treated as the soldiers' property to do with as they please. Samira notices a little girl among the women and takes special care of her, always trying to comfort her. Suddenly, a soldier arrives and takes Samira to another location. This time, she finds herself in front of a very young soldier who seems unsure of what to do. She expects violence, but to her surprise, he turns out to be the kindest of them all. He simply holds her and sleeps beside her without doing anything. The next day, another soldier comes and takes one of the girls, claiming she's his friend's sister, though it's a lie. When the girl returns the next day, she is in terrible condition, covered in wounds. Samira and the nurse try to care for her, but unfortunately, her condition worsens day by day until one morning, they wake to find she has died. The soldiers take her body and bury it as if nothing happened. This leaves Samira feeling hopeless and convinced they're all going to die in this camp. Determined to reclaim some sense of self, she decides to at least live the rest of her days feeling content with her appearance. She begins to put on makeup and take care of herself, despite her deep depression. Her fellow prisoners warn her that the soldiers might target her even more, but she no longer cares what they say. One day, Samira is taken to the office of a high-ranking commander. He seems to be fond of her and wants to get to know her better. He treats her kindly because he knows she's there by mistake and that she's not from the village. When Samira notices a family photo on his desk, she tries to ask him about his family, but he doesn't respond. Later, she dresses up for him, wearing a red dress as if she were going on a date with an admirer, preparing to meet the young commander. Despite the other women's fears that this relationship might end in tragedy, Samira is taken to his house, where he offers her food and drink and treats her gently. Still, she remains cautious, afraid of any sudden change in his behavior, and hides in the bathroom, locking the door behind her. Eventually, she returns to him, and they spend a pleasant time together. When she tries to get any information about the location, he refuses to reveal anything. After spending the night with him, she returns to her place, and the idea of escaping starts to cross her mind, especially after noticing an unguarded area, but she quickly abandons the thought when she sees a soldier nearby. The next day, she returns to the commander, who now sympathizes with her even more and allows her to use the bathroom to relax. When she comes out, he's even more gentle, telling her about his son. Samira uses the romantic atmosphere to secretly steal some painkillers and give them to the other prisoners. Over time, it becomes clear that he has fallen in love with her. Still, all the women agree that if they ever had the chance, they would kill any soldier who fell into their hands. The next morning, Samira wakes up to the sound of gunfire. That night, she visits the commander and sees the bodies of soldiers who had been killed. While she's in his room, he suddenly receives an urgent mission and leaves, trusting her enough to stay alone. She tries to contact her family, but fails. Suddenly, she hears a gunshot. Looking out the window, she sees the commander has shot one of the prisoners. He returns and tries to remind her of her status as a prisoner, but he doesn't use violence against her. As time passes, the number of prisoners decreases, and executions by gunfire become routine. One day, an older woman asks Samira to help another prisoner who had attempted suicide by taking pills after losing her daughter. The next day, everyone is surprised when the soldiers load them onto buses to move them from the camp. Samira had hoped something new was happening, but she is shocked when the commander asks her to stay behind. He wants to tell her something important. He then surprises her by saying that the war is over and that she is now free. He bids her farewell, gives her some money and her belongings. On the way, Samira sees how completely destroyed the city is. The bus stops and the passengers are forced to continue on foot to cross a river. They walk together until they cross the border and finally reach their original hometown. Only then do they truly believe that they are free. A short time later, Samira visits a doctor and learns that she is pregnant. It's clear the child is the commander's. She decides to have an abortion, but the doctor warns her it would be dangerous for her life. Samira eventually returns home, where her parents are overjoyed to see her alive but upset to learn she's pregnant by one of the enemy soldiers. In the end, Samira gives birth to a baby boy and decides to leave him at an orphanage. But when she looks at an old picture of herself as a child with her family, she changes her mind and decides to raise him, despite the fact that he might always remind her of the darkest days of her life. The film ends on this emotional note. If you enjoyed the film, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell to stay updated with all our latest content.